Hi, welcome back to the Meeting of Minds podcast. I'm Philippa. Today's episode is probably going to be short and sweet. It's called How to Get Stuff Done. That sounds quite, I don't know, what does it sound? It sounds, I don't know, quite directive. But as you will perhaps realise from some of my other episodes, I often pose a few questions around it more than actually it being directive. But I was listening to a conversation a couple of people were having by the lake that the marine lake that I go swimming in, and they were talking about wanting to get stuff done but not knowing where to start. And it was really interesting because they were posing different ways of starting and like how to get themselves going and get stuff done. And it really got me thinking. And so I'm a member of a creative writing group called the Confident Creative Club. Helen Redfern runs that group. She is amazing. And if you are a creative, we're mainly writers. I think we're nearly all writers. Some have other creative outlets as well, but I think we're all writers. Yeah, I think that's right. And she helps us with our confidence. And she ran a course at the beginning of this year, which really reminded me about something that I've been told many times over the years about how to get stuff done. And I thought it'd be useful to do an episode because listening to those ladies at the pool at the lake really reminded me about it. And, it's no sort of, there's no sort of magic to it, but maybe there is magic. Maybe it's, it feels quite obvious to me, but maybe there is some magic to it. The main thing that I want to talk about is making what it is you want to do, the stuff that you want to get done, breaking it down into tiny steps, small steps, more manageable chunks. So I think some people talk about tiny steps, some people talk about chunking work, people talk about all sorts of, there's different like models that different sort of like work sectors will talk about, but they're all essentially the same thing. That if we are here having not started and we want to get all the way over here to have finished something, for us to see here to here, it's a big step, and it can be overwhelming, it can be daunting, it can be too much for us to start. And we might not be able to envisage, we might not be able to understand what actually getting here looks like or represents or feels like. And either because it's such a massive step and or because we can't even understand what done looks like, we don't get started. And that's a real shame because what things that we want to get done, they might be very important to us, they might end up being important to the world. They might just be things that help us get through a tough time. They might be things that help us keep going. They might be all important for all manner of reasons. But because we are focusing over here and can't imagine how we're ever going to get there, we just don't start. Now, I have absolutely been in this position in the past. And I have stopped myself doing things. The main reason that I have stopped myself doing things in the past is from a desire to not look stupid, or to not be the fat person who can't do it, or to not want to disappoint myself by not being able to get here. So I've told myself from the outset that I'm not going to get to whatever the end is. And therefore I don't even start. And I have missed out on trying lots of things, doing lots of things, and just experiencing things over the years that, you know, I wish I'd not missed out on now. And I'm really making the most of opportunities that come my way so I don't miss out now. I mean, being over 50 is an amazing place for me to be, because I'm much more inclined to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to give it a go. Okay, my life is by no means over, but I'm definitely making the most of this next bit, this second half, this whatever you want to call it. I am absolutely making the most of every opportunity that comes my way. So if we take for me a big example of something that I've always wanted to do, for the last 30 odd years, I'd say, on and off, so not constantly for the last 30 years, but on and off for the last 30 years, I have wanted to write a book. I remember when I first lived in London as a trainee solicitor, so that was back in the early 90s. In fact, 1992 I started, so that's 30 years ago this year, in May, so not long ago. Yeah, anyway, I remember writing the first chapter of what might have been a book, and it was about a young female trainee solicitor in London. I didn't get past the first chapter. I can't even remember what I wrote. But I know that I did start that. And over the years, I've done first chapters, I've written little ideas, but it's never really come to anything. I also know that over the years, a few people have said to me, and one friend in particular has said to me quite a few times, you should write all that down in a book. You know, like nobody will believe like the way my life has been at times. And, you know, you should write it all down. And it has been in the back of my mind to write a book for a long, long time. I think now, looking back, the timing wasn't right. It didn't feel right to fictionalize it. It felt a little bit dishonoring for me to fictionalize my story. In the end, the memoir that I wrote, that I spent most of 2021 writing, I didn't fictionalize it, and I wrote it as a memoir because that felt the right thing to do for me. Everyone's different. And I probably also, if I'm really honest, there is an element of me that doesn't believe that I can write fiction, that doesn't believe I would be able to fictionalize it. That my writing is not good enough for that. But what I could do is write my story. And I'm writing my story as me from my perspective also felt the most self-honouring thing to do. And when I left therapy, I absolutely knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was going to do it. I said to my therapist, I'm going to write all this down. And, you know, I don't know whether everybody says that when they leave therapy, but she sort of gave me a knowing look and went, okay, good luck with that. You know, very nice way. And I did. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And again, I wrote the first chapter. I wrote a lot of what is actually the first chapter in my book, where I talk about losing the sight in my right eye. And then I got stuck. I really got stuck because I was here writing the first chapter, and over here, I couldn't imagine what the finished book was going to look like, was going to be like. And I also couldn't understand, I couldn't get it straight in my head how I was going to write it all down, how I was going to make sense of all these jumbled thoughts in my head. I just couldn't, I just didn't know what to do. And I was paralysed by that lack of knowing. I was stuck and not able to carry on writing because I didn't know how to write it to achieve the end result, which also I didn't know what it looked like. So I got stuck, and that's when I knew I needed some help. And I don't know if I knew now, if I'd been in Helen's group at that time, and if I'd been reminded of tiny steps and trying to work that out, I don't know whether I'd have worked that out for myself. I don't know whether, because my story was so big for me at the moment, I was right in it, really right in it. I just finished therapy and I was sort of consumed by it. So I don't know whether the tiny steps would have helped me through. I think they probably would have done in time. But what I actually did was hire a book coach to help me. I came across Sam at the right time. I didn't go looking for her, but I came across her at the time I needed help. And I thought, yeah, I think she's going to be able to help me. And so I worked with Sam, and she really, her first tiny step for me was to not worry about the end result, to not worry about what it was going to look like, but was just to write it all down, just write what wanted to come out. Literally just sit down and write type. And I did the vast majority of the writing in about 3 big sessions. So I wrote about 90,000 words in about 3 big sessions, because once I was given free rein to just do it, it just all came out. I mean, it didn't come out in a way that resembles at all what the finished book looks like. That was, another step of trying to work out the chronology, trying to work out how to do it, how to put it together, how to put the story together, how to mix the stories up in it, how to put them in the book in a way that sort of made sense. And but it came together, and it came together because I realized I couldn't do it myself. I got some help, and Sam basically took me through tiny steps and just said, just do this and just do this bit. And I really like the way you've written that, but can you give me more about that? And can you go more in depth about this? And bit by bit, it started to come together, tiny steps. And I think Sam's motto is, from small steps come a big leap, or something like that. So she calls it small steps. Helen calls it tiny steps. I mean, it's all the same. It's all the same idea of taking something that you want to do and breaking it down into smaller pieces. So for me, the first small piece for writing my book was to just write what wanted to come out, because I knew it was in there. And I know that's not, if it's not in there, then, but you want to write a book, then the first small step is going to, be something different, isn't it? It's going to be more, think about the books that you enjoy, or what, write down all the ideas that you might have for a book, or what sort of book you want to write, or the feeling you want to give the readers at the end, having read your book. What is it that you're looking to create? And brainstorm those ideas before you can move on to the next step. Let's think of a different example. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go back to this plant again behind me, but there I had a plant that was dying and that really wasn't very happy. I didn't know how to get it healthy again. But the first tiny step was to actually ask somebody about the plant. And she gave me really good advice. And then the next thing was to make sure that I put that advice into I did it. So she told me to mist the plant. And now I mist it every day. I give it a little, little chat and say, hi, how you doing today? And it's growing really well. And bit by bit, tiny step, water every now and again, and I turn it round so that it's all getting sunlight, and it's doing really well. But that has been small steps to bring it back to life. This podcast, it's really interesting, this podcast. So A lot of people are podcasting now, which is great. I mean, I think there's so much room for lots of podcasts, because, I could be talking about the same thing as somebody else is talking, and you might prefer to listen to me, you might prefer to listen to them. Some people might prefer to listen to me, some people might prefer to listen to them. There is room for lots of podcasts, lots more podcasts yet. I decided, when did I decide? Middle of 2020, that I really wanted to do a podcast, and I didn't know how to do it. It seemed like such a big thing. How could I go from, yes, I want to do it, what am I going to call it, what's its format going to be, where am I going to host it, how do I record, how do I do all of these things? And I just had, like, it seemed a bit like a dream that I could actually have a podcast, and how was I going to start it? And what happened was, one day I started talking to Louisa, who you might have listened to some of my previous episodes with Louisa. Haven't had her on for a bit either, so maybe it might be time for another Louisa episode. But I was talking to her one day, and it really dawned on me, like, how do we get on so well? Because she's a lot younger than me. And what is it about, we used to work together, but what is it about how we get on so well? And I realized that we sort of meet on an internal level. So yes, we sort of met on a mind level. I think actually we meet more on a heart and soul level, but what we feel in our heart and in our soul feeds our mind as well. And that's how I came up with the name Meeting of Minds. So I got a name, and then I decided I really wanted to do solo episodes and talk about my healing journey, but I wasn't brave enough to do that from the beginning. And then I hit on the idea of talking to people in their 20s, because I realised I know quite a lot of people in their 20s, and I wanted to normalise the experience of our 20s, that actually it's okay for them to be full of different things, trying different jobs, trying on life's uniforms. That's what we called it, because I read about it in a book about what your 20s are like. And writing my book, I realised how tumultuous my 20s were. So that's when I hit on the idea of talking to people in their 20s. So I'd got the name, I'd got the idea, and then it happened to come into my, I can't remember how I came across it, but a lady was doing a webinar, which was just £10 to attend, about how to start a podcast. And I thought, this is it. And I went to it, and, she was only talking about how she'd done hers, but it made me realise it doesn't have to be that complicated. I mean, yes, it can be complicated. Yes, you can, want the best video, the best sound, you can have the greatest equipment, you can really go to town on it. And also you can keep it much more low-key and easy and get started. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I decided to start, because that I work quite well that way, of just doing something, and it might not be the best, but it gets it done, and then in time I can make it better. And that is what I'm trying to do with this podcast. Every season I might try something different, try a different way. This season we've gone on YouTube, largely because it's taken me up until now to be used to my voice being out in the world. This season I decided I was happy to put my face out into the world and put it on YouTube. And that's been a really big step for me, because I have spent years hiding away and suppressing the real me. So to bring the real me here on a video, put it on YouTube, put my voice, on all the podcast apps, to allow other people to hear and watch me, has been a massive big deal for me, to be seen and heard. sorry, I'm getting quite emotional. It has been a really big deal. And what I really want, what I really want is to bring all the things that either I've learned from personal experience or I've witnessed in other people, or I just want to bring things that might be useful, and that might just start one person thinking about their life a little differently and how they can bring more joy into their life, how they can make small changes, how they can take some tiny steps. So the real point about this tiny steps episode is about that when I talk about this work that I have done over the last 5 years, my healing, my self-development work, is it hard? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely yes. And when we start, we can't envisage what it's going to be like, what it's going to look like. And I think if I had been focusing on the end result, I would never have started. And I didn't start voluntarily. I didn't decide one day I was going to do this work. I got to the point where I had nothing left to lose because my world was collapsing around my ears, knees, whatever the saying is. I'm always getting them wrong. And I just hope that by talking about it, some of you out there who are listening or watching might start your own journey before needing to hit rock bottom like I did. And I think about the way I was 5 years ago when I lost the sight in my right eye, which, if you don't know, I did get most of it back. But at the time I was told it was permanent. And when I think about back to the way I was then, how angry and how frustrated and just how, I don't know what the word is, just so caught up in trying so hard and feeling so unappreciated and feeling like it was all a complete waste of time, to now, it's not all rosy. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely not all rosy. And every day is still a school day. But on the whole, I am so much more calm and peaceful and grounded in who I am. And yes, I might get rocked around a little bit or blown around in the wind or whatever analogy you want to use. But the inner bit of me is much more steady and solid now. And I do still go to that place of, oh, I've got it wrong or it's all my fault. But I don't stay there quite so long. I mean, sometimes I don't stay there very long at all. Sometimes I might stay there a little bit longer, but I have never been as low as I was at the beginning, and I've never stayed there for as long. And I think if I had started this work earlier, I would not have got that low. I don't know. I can't actually say that. I just have a feeling that is the way it would have been. But equally, getting to where I did get to plunged me right into it. And I just, I just surrendered to it. And I have not looked back. The first 18 months were quite tough. But I would not go back for anything now. I feel like I am doing now what I am meant to be doing. I feel like I am doing something worthwhile. I feel joy in my life, and that is marvelous. And that's what I want for you. If you've got it already, amazing. And if you haven't, I just want you to know that it is possible. Because I think we're told, we are told from all the information that we take in, even if we're not told directly, that somehow, wherever we are in our life, we just have to put up with it. And, you know, I know there are some things that you can't change easily. You know, we can't suddenly get more money. We can't suddenly get rid of people in our life who are difficult. You know, there are some things we can't change, but we can change us. We can change ourselves. We can do better for ourselves. We can honour ourselves much more. And that is what I am hoping, that's the message I'm hoping to bring, I'm trying to bring, and also doing it in tiny steps is the way to achieve it without absolutely blowing your world apart, and so that it doesn't get too overwhelming, and also so that you can start. So if any of you want to start this your journey and you don't know where to start, please get in touch. Let's have a let's have a conversation by email or on Instagram or something. Let's have a little conversation about where you could start. I'd love that. Get in touch if that's something that, you know, is interesting to you. Okay, I'm going to go now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you being part of this podcast with me, because without you listening or watching, there is no point me doing this. So thank you so much. Okay, you take care. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends. Please subscribe. And if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website, www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.